We are developing the quality of responsibility. Now, a lot of these qualities are developed by our parents or by teachers or by coaches, but none of these are inherent. Every person has the responsibility, the quality within them, but it must be developed, and there must be things that happen to you in your life to make it happen. Now, when you look at responsibility, I want you to listen to this. The student fails a class. His response, I had a bad teacher. Now, if you follow that logic, that would infer that the only way you can ever make good grades if you have great teachers. Well, I use a personal example here. When our daughter was in school, in probably about the 8th grade, she had one of the worst biology teachers that you could have. And it was the first day, and we got home, and she told us who she had for biology and English and math and so forth. And being an administrator in that school district, I knew I could get that teacher changed. And so I said, I'll get that changed tomorrow. And my wife says, no, you won't. That guy uses the same book as any other biology teacher. And it is not his job for you to learn, Kimmy. It is your job, your responsibility to learn biology. Well, many years later, this came back to me when Kimmy came home from college, and just as a matter of conversation, hire the teachers. She said, it doesn't matter. I'm responsible to learn. You see, you don't blame the teachers because you're not learning English. You're the one responsible. You got to find a way. The ability to respond. Listen to this. The team loses a game. The referee makes a tough call. The referees and the booster club and all the parents are certain that the referees cheated them. Now, what you infer from that is, unless you get all the calls in a game, you can't win. Well, one of the things you teach early in coaching is that we're going to win in spite of the referees. You have to respond to referees' calls. And you can only respond to a referee's call if you accept responsibility for the next play. A couple of years ago, my son, I'm not sure he wants me to come. He's a football coach, and I'm not sure he appreciates me coming to any game. But I went to one of his games, and right before half, they ran a quarterback sneak to try to score a touchdown right before the half. And they fumbled the ball. And they called timeout. Well, the referee said that time had run out, and so they weren't allowed another play. Well, I was sitting on the bench on the sideline, and one of the assistant coaches came out, and he told me, he said, boy, the referees got us on that one. They really cheated us on that. Could we call timeout? And I said, if the kid would not have fumbled the football, it wouldn't have mattered. That's y'all's responsibility. Now, the problem with that is that assistant coach hadn't spoken to me since then. But whose responsibility was it to not fumble the football? Don't put the referees in a situation where they do determine the outcome of a game. Situation. A person has one parent, is abused as a child, is born into abject poverty, and uses all of these as excuses for not being successful. That would infer, the logic there would be that if you're not born into a good situation, you can't be successful. Well, a think tank in Colorado determined who they felt were the 300 greatest leaders in the world that have ever lived. Jesus Christ, Nelson Mandela, George Washington, Lincoln. And here's what's really funny. 75% of those people were born in abject poverty, abused as a children, or suffered from a physical handicap. There goes that excuse. You see, they accepted responsibility for who they were, where they were, what they were. And they went on to be successful. They became the nevertheless generation. The fourth situation, true story. A man murders and cannibalizes young men. Now, what could be your defense when you kill them and eat them? His defense, he was abused as a child. Is that the most ridiculous thing you can imagine? That would mean that all the people that have been abused as children can go out and kill and cannibalize. Well, none of us would agree with that. And yet we have lawyers arguing that that's a defense for what he did. He did it. He did not accept responsibility for it. It wasn't his fault. Responsibility means I accept the blame. It is my fault. I will correct it. If you don't accept responsibility for who you are, where you are, and what you are, there's no chance that you'll ever change who you are, where you are, and what you are. If you don't accept responsibility, I can promise you, you're never going to develop into being the best you that you can be.